The one thing that Republicans, man, that I think we got really wrong in the last few years is the anti-Hunter Biden stuff.
Welcome to another episode of the Be Wise Podcast. I am your host, Chris Wright. This is where we discuss politics, entertainment, sports, and social media. Pretty short show today. The biggest thing is that JD Vance did his interview with Joe Rogan, and I told you that I thought the Donald Trump interview with Joe Rogan was simply amazing. 3 hours, very engaging, funny, etc. But this was better. This was better. Man, Joe Rogan, man, I just wish I had his formula. I'm going to keep doing these podcasts. I know I'm not as engaging as Joe Rogan, but I'm going to figure out his formula because every time he does a video, he's doing 13, 15, 30 million, 50 million views, depending on who it is. But yeah, so we're going to talk about the JD Vance interview. We're also going to talk a little bit about Kamala Harris and some of her inconsistencies in her messaging. And other than that, let's get going. So I went camping this weekend, as you all know. I told you I love camping. I even got my latest camp. Can you see it? Yeah, this is the here we go, New York KOA campground, whatever. Anyway, yeah, so a funny thing happened at camping. So notice I labeled this Camping with MAGA T. And the reason I call it that is I don't want to call the guy out. I don't know him well enough to put his name out on social media, but I get so frustrated that if you are a conservative, if you're going to support Donald Trump, or if, Republican, call it whatever you want to call it, you're on the right. And people have been saying things like how the Donald Trump supporters are garbage, how Donald Trump supporters are racist, how Donald Trump supporters, if you're Black, you're an Uncle Tom, you're an Uncle Ruckus, that they're deplorables, they're irredeemables. Like the left say all these things about not only Donald Trump, but about his supporters. I saw one guy today, one of my favorite people on TikTok today, was saying like, you know what? If you support Donald Trump, you're not in my camp. So basically, Donald Trump supporters have just been dismissed. Conservatives have been dismissed. And the reason I want to talk about camping with MAGA T is because, a lot of campers, they go camping to get away from people. Like a lot of campers, they don't want to be social. They just want to, pop open their RV, basically hang out with their wife and kids, maybe their dog. Sometimes they come with family. But a lot of times, there's other times rather, that they want to meet other campers and they'll come over to you and, hey, how you doing? They're walking by your RV with their dog, whatever, ask you a few questions, but they keep it moving. You can kind of get a sense if a camper wants to be social or if they're interested in meeting someone new. You just kind of get a vibe. You'll ask them a couple questions. They're usually pretty short and you just move on. You gotta understand the tone. You gotta be in the moment. You gotta get it. And over time, you begin to understand. Anyway, I'm sitting there with my wife. It's probably around, I don't know, 8:30 at night. It's getting darker quicker now. We had just come out from a full day. We went to Angry Orchard, where they make these, Angry Orchard. So we went over to the Angry Orchard, plant, manufacturer, whatever you want to call it. Came back, kids settled in. They're on their phones and tablets. Me and her just sitting out there chopping it up. And then out of the blue, this couple comes over. They got their baby in their arms. She's a Black girl. He's a white guy. Not that that matters, but it does kind of add context to the story. And he has his Make America Great Again hat on, his MAGA hat, 45, 47 on the side. And he was like, "Hey, blah blah blah. I'm Maggie T. That's not his real name." And she says her name. I'm this, I'm that. And they were just so polite and fun. And they came to us and introduced themselves, introduced us to their baby, 2-year-old, and I gave them Angry Orchard drinks, and we just had a great old time for another 2 hours. So, you know, a lot of it, a lot of the hate from social media and other people just come from lack of knowledge, man, not getting outside of your bubble. And it's really refreshing. Like I don't worry about it because I never have these instances. People say on TikTok, they don't like you or they'll never accept you. But here I am minding my own business with my family. Maga T comes over with his wife and kid and just starts chopping it up with us, having a good time. We laughed for 2 hours, had a great time, told me background of their life. We talked about ours, our families, and it was just really a good time. So, and it reminded me of something that I heard Officer Tatum talk about. The Officer Tatum, he was talking about Ryan Clark because Ryan Clark, he's he's been in the news. Every time he's in the news, it has something to do with race. I don't know why he's as Jason Whitlock call it. He's such a race idolater. He loves to talk about race. He's like stuck in this bubble about race. And I mean, I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler fan. He's a former Steeler, and so I always have liked him as a player. But I just wish he would just get out of this mindset of being this social, justice warrior, and he always has to talk about race, and it drives me crazy. So, Officer Tatum had said something about that, and I'm going to add it here. Let me show you.
Men fall in two categories. The men like myself that become emotionally mature and grow up and do research and get out of the bubble of thinking that white people bad and Black Lives Matter and all that old crazy stuff. We mature and grow up as men. And then there's men that stay stifled stifled by age. Like they never grow up. They're still the 15-year-old that grew up in the hood and believe all that stupid stuff. The cops are bad and all that. You never grow up. They never mentally mature. So it doesn't matter how old they get. It doesn't matter what profession they're in. They never mentally mature. Ryan Clark is a black man who has never mentally matured when it comes to social issues.
When Nick Bosa shows up in a MAGA hat during Brock Purdy's interview, he knows exactly what he's doing. Never before has sort of partisanship had divided the country in the way that it has. Since 2016, that's been what it is. And when you say make America great again.
Let me pause real quick. So he's finna go down the road of stupidity. They always use the same term. But let me just say this. The NFL allowed people to say, in racism, Black Lives Matter, and all this stuff on their head, shirts, T-shirts, they socks. Colin Kaepernick was in practice with pig socks, depicting police officers as pigs. Colin Kaepernick was bashing police officers, white people, kneeling during the national anthem. They are showing a partisan belief system. But Ryan didn't have no problem when they were doing that.
So, yeah, Ryan Clark. Never before have we ever had racial division when it came to politics. Never before have we seen this partisan type atmosphere since 2016. It's been going on. How old are you, Ryan? I know you're pushing 50. What are you talking about? It was there during the Obama administration. It's been there. It was there during the Clintons. It was there during Nixon. What are you talking about? There's never been partisanship and race issues in politics. So that's, yeah, like I said, he's just disappointing sometimes. I just wish he would just give it up, man. I know you feel that you got to do the Pivot podcast and it's about sports and race and social issues, but man, I don't get it. So anyway, I want to get to the highlight of our show. JD Vance was on Joe Rogan. And this is the second week in a row I'm talking about Joe Rogan because Donald Trump was on there last week. And like I said, I think Donald Trump's, I didn't look at the views today, but I think Donald Trump's is going to get up to probably 50 million views. As of yesterday, JD Vance has only been on for 2 days and it was already up to 14 million. So kudos to Joe Rogan, whatever he's doing. I'm going to show some of the clips. Don't want to show too many. I don't really care about copyright at this point. I don't have enough subscribers and views to worry about being monetized. So it's good to catch this stuff early in my YouTube career because I'm not being monetized anyway. I'm just doing this for the love of the game. Anyway, so he was on. Now, what I want to say about it is that the reason I found it better than the Trump, because Trump was still being Trump. It was good, but it was nothing that I hadn't heard before. You know, the way Trump talks, the way he expresses himself. But to see JD Vance come on and he was talking about his kids, how his life has basically now he wasn't complaining, but how his life has changed since being the VP candidate, how his kids' life has changed, having Secret Service around his house, going as opposed to flying commercial or flying first class as a senator versus, having Secret Service and flying, Air Force One or whatever they fly. I don't know. But my point is, everything is just so much more tight. But he was just so down to earth and he was very engaging. He wasn't extremely partisan, but he did defend MAGA. He defended conservative politics. He defended right-wing politics. But just to hear him in his own voice was just very refreshing. Here's one clip where he talks about how Boys in the Hood, yes, the movie Boys in the Hood, changed his life as a young man.
Because they always gravitate towards that. They always gravitate towards making the most amount of money.
And again, this is where I go back to some of the arguments of the old left. Like, what kind of guardrails do you want these companies to have? Do you want the guardrails to be that if you donate to the trans pride and BLM organizations, you get to do whatever the hell you want?
Right.
Or do you want the guardrails like, we're going to protect health and public safety and make sure that you're not, like, killing people under the auspice of helping them?
Yeah. And
that's the kind of guardrails I want. The common
very
sense
logical. Yeah, very logical. But logic is, dangerous today. Like logic.
Oh man.
Logic is it's a problem when you have ideologies and people strictly adhere.
Logic is a colonial idea, man. You got to get away from the logic.
And math is racist.
That's
I don't know
right.
if you know about that. That's a new one.
Well, okay, so this is interesting. There's this movie that's probably like extremely influential to my entire political worldview, and I didn't realize until last night because I got into Austin late. Usually my wife travels with me. She wasn't with me last night. She's taking care of the kids today. So I get into the hotel room in Austin, and it's very late, and I watch this movie, Boys in the Hood. Have you ever seen Boys in the Hood?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. I watched that movie a ton when I was like 8, 9 years old, and I didn't realize how much that movie has had an influence on me until I watched it last night. Okay, so, all right, for Furious Styles, a lot of his stuff about not letting financial institutions buy up all the stuff in your communities. Obviously, he's talking about black people in LA and not, white people in, rural small town America. But I was like, oh, like that's maybe the first place that I ever heard this idea. Or he talks about like the importance of fatherhood, the importance of especially young boys having a father in the home. It's like I got that from Boys in the Hood, and obviously it spoke to me when I was a kid because I grew up at the time and I didn't have much of a relationship with my dad. And it's interesting, man. He makes this observation, math being racist. He's criticizing the SAT for being culturally biased, but then he says the only part that isn't culturally biased is the math. And it's like, oh, this is like a black nationalist in the mid-'80s, because that's kind of the philosophy of this movie, is what you might call like old school black leftism. This movie in the 1980s is saying something that I wish a lot of white liberals would hear today, which is actually math is not racist. It's one, it's one of the things that's like not definitively not racist is math and numbers. You guys are losing your damn minds.
Well,
and everything. And by the way, this was a 3-hour podcast, so that was just a 2-minute clip, and that was very interesting. I thought it was funny. I just noticed that this time when he said I was watching that movie at 8 and 9 years old. Boys in the Hood was not for an 8 and 9-year-old person, but if his parents let him watch it or his grandmother let him watch it, that's kudos. But he was talking about the family, Furious Styles. If you've never seen Boys in the Hood, which I have to question your integrity if you've never watched it. So that's what Furious Styles He was Trey's father. He was trying to raise a man. It was a patriarchy. And he was talking about the system and how to fight the system. No victimhood. Just these are the things you must know. He talked about the SATs. He said the only part of the SATs that are not racist is the math. So that was interesting. Then another funny clip I wanted to show you here was, it's very short. It talks about Hunter Biden, how the Republicans were all over Hunter Biden's laptop. I even asked one of my close friends, I said, "Are you still concerned about Hunter Biden's laptop?" This was just about 4 months ago. He goes, "Yes." JD, he doesn't really care.
Okay, by the way, this is an act of bipartisanship. The one thing that Republicans, man, that I think we got really wrong in the last few years is the anti-Hunter Biden stuff. I want to go hang out with Hunter Biden. I mean, I may be the only Republican. That dude.
He was like Hunter
knows
S.
how to have a
Thompson
good
without
time.
the writing talent.
So I thought that was pretty funny that he wants to hang out with Hunter Biden. And they went on to talk about more about, strippers and cocaine and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And this last part resonated with me because how a lot of people are leaving the left. They're leaving the Democratic Party. They're leaving, liberal ideas, left-wing ideology, things like that. And as opposed to staying in the party and trying to change it for good, instead, a lot of people are just saying, "Screw it, I'm out." And that's kind of the way I was. But then they go on to talk about Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. and place people like that. Take a listen.
Which to me is insanity. And the people that do have a problem with it, their solution seems to be to just go to the right. They don't even feel like you can reform the left.
Mm-hmm.
People are just like Tulsi Gabbard becomes a Republican.
Yeah.
People are just abandoning this. Like, I can't talk to you people.
That's right. I'm doing an event with Tulsi Gabbard tonight in Pennsylvania.
I
Actually,
love her.
I love her. She's awesome. And I think she basically decided the left cannot be reformed in this country anymore. That's what happened with Bobby Kennedy. That's what's happened with a lot of old school liberals. Is they said, we don't care what you do in your bedroom, but we believe in the fundamental right of people to speak their mind, and the Democrats just don't believe in that anymore.
Yeah, so it's true. It's just like when you see everything that's going on the left in liberal politics and liberal ideology, you just go, you know what? This is just not for me. They've gone way off the rocker. They talk a lot about youth sex changes and transgender, all that kind of stuff. They really get into it. Really, really good show. The reaction was kind of amazing. And honestly, when Donald Trump first picked his VP running mate, I was unsure. I was like, JD Vance? I thought of the movie that he wrote, Hillbilly Elegy. And that was really a good movie, by the way. I recommend you go watch it. Kind of about his life and growing up in Ohio. But I just thought, my mind immediately went to identity, like, oh, he should pick a woman. Tulsi Gabbard, people were throwing her name out there. Then people thought about a black guy. So people thought, Byron Donalds, maybe Tim Scott. So all these names were thrown out there, but it was for the sole purpose of identity. But then you have to ask yourself, Biden picked Kamala for that very reason, because she was a woman and she was a woman of color, right? So now look what we have. We have a president that's not very likable. Okay. So if Donald Trump, he can only serve one term. So I have to ask myself, can I see JD Vance as the president of the United States? Yes, I can. Yes, I can. So if he decides to run for president after Donald Trump leaves, will Donald Trump endorse him? Because remember, Donald Trump would not endorse Pence, right? Mike Pence. But I bet this is someone that Donald Trump would full-throated support, would put his money behind him, probably pay for his whole campaign just to see this guy in the White House, so he can continue to see the work that he's done. And I think he knows that JD Vance will continue that work. But the reaction was pretty amazing. Just looking at some of the the comments on the YouTube page. And looks like, a lot of people were just, JD's a rock star, wow. People are like, wow, look at these comments. And we really got a chance to see the real JD Vance, not just the guy behind the podium or at a rally. He showed up, and it was a really, really, really good interview. But this is why alternative media is so important, because we cannot depend on mainstream media to get the truth. We can't watch CNN. We can't watch MSNBC, Fox News, because they're not going to give us the real people. And then when these politicians do show up on those news shows, they have 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe to make their point. They're not going to be on MSNBC. They're not going to sit with Rachel Maddow for 3 hours and just chop it up, shoot the shit, right? It's going to be just, 5 minutes. So they have to do their stump speeches in 5 minutes, and they have to be very partisan, and you learn nothing about their wife, their kids, their childhood, their background, their parents. So alternative media is very good. But not only that, ever since we've had alternative media, mainstream media's ratings have been going down drastically. These 1 hour blocks, that they were really important to channels like CNN. So what I think is happening now, CNN actually has to tell some truth. Fox News has to tell some truth. That's the only way they're going to get more viewers. So there was this situation where Kamala Harris got caught with mixed messages about the Israel-Palestinian conflict, and how she talked to Palestinians and Muslims in one state, and then how she talked to large Jewish populations in another state. And it's extremely fascinating just to watch these two messages play out. And here's my thought. I'm thinking, with 24/7, 365, media and social media and X and TikTok and Instagram, does she not think she's going to get caught? Like, how do you give mixed messages? How can you be so blatantly inconsistent and not think, oh, this will go over well? Check this out. And this is CNN. So kudos to CNN, because we always trash CNN as carrying water for the Democratic Party. So they got it right this time.
Tonight, mixed messages. A K-file investigation this hour finds Kamala Harris is targeting crucial battleground voters with vastly different messages on Gaza and Israel. This ad is running in Michigan, which has the largest Arab population in America.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent.
All right, well, it's a very different story for an ad in Pennsylvania targeting Jewish voters.
Let me be clear. I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7.
Different message. Andrew Kaczynski is out front now. So, Andrew, those obviously do sound starkly different, to say the least. Tell me more about what you found.
Yeah, that's right. And look, this really illustrates the sort of fine line that the Harris campaign is trying to walk here in the closing weeks, closing days of this campaign on the issue of Israel. Here you have two entirely different constituencies, and they are getting two entirely different messages. There are often times these constituencies have very opposing views on this. If you are a Jewish person in Pennsylvania, you saw that ad that you're getting. You are getting that ad that talks about how strong she is in Israel. If you're a Muslim voter in Michigan, you are getting that ad on Facebook that's talking about how she won't be silent on the issue of Gaza. Now, what's really interesting here is that ad that we just played, the one that's going to Jewish voters in Pennsylvania. Now, it sort of sounds like those two clips of her talking about Israel are together, but they actually cut part of it out. Take a listen to what they cut.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
And you've seen too that she, they cut out that portion of the ad where they talked about Gaza from her DNC speech.
So Kamala just has a real problem with the messaging. I think that that's not going to go over well. Definitely going to be something that people will point out this week because it just recently happened. But we have some very unresolved issues with foreign policy, with geopolitical affairs. One is the Israel-Palestinian conflict. The other is the Ukraine-Russia war. How many millions and billions of dollars are we going to keep pouring into Ukraine? There doesn't seem to be an exit strategy. It just seems like we're going to continue to flood that money into Ukraine until, I don't know. Like I said, there's no ending. Politicians aren't talking about it. I haven't heard a clear message from the Democrats, and I really haven't heard a really clear message from the Republicans. All that said, Tulsi Gabbard, who has flipped parties, she wrote a new book. She's all over the place right now, by the way. She has Tulsi Gabbard Live on Sirius XM. She just recently wrote a book. She's doing her tour around the internet, podcasts, and things like that. But anyway, she had a really, really different view from the Republican Party when it came to Ukraine and Russia. And Piers Morgan pushed back on that because I think that Piers feels that the United States should continue to pour money, although I don't know how much money England is sending Ukraine for this war. But take a listen on this short debate.
One of the things in the book which I passionately disagree with you about is Ukraine. I've been there, I've interviewed President Zelensky, and I'm just surprised, I've been very surprised that a significant number of Republicans in the last 2 years have gravitated to a position, it seems to me, of saying we should just let Putin take what he's taken. He should keep it. We should end this war by allowing him to keep all the land he's stolen with his murderous, illegal rampage of a sovereign democratic European country. I never thought I'd hear Republicans make that argument. You yourself were in Iraq. You were there, actually, I think at the same time as my brother, who was a colonel in the Royal Welsh Regiment. So thank you for your service, as I always thank him for his. You were in Iraq, which, just to remind viewers, was a war that was fought on an entirely false pretext, as it turned out, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Here, you've got someone who absolutely has weapons of mass destruction, Vladimir Putin. He's a ruthless Russian dictator. He's illegally invaded a democratic country. And I'm baffled why people like you on the right, the Republican side of this argument, seem to think it would be, by default, really, a good thing or a thing that has to happen, inevitable thing to happen, that Putin wins.
I don't think that's an accurate characterization at all. Of course, it was wrong for Putin to invade Ukraine. My criticism of our American policy and the Biden-Harris administration's leadership is on this, that they should see the situation for what it is, not what they wished it to be. They should clearly have defined, what does winning look like? If you ask 10 different people in Washington, D.C. this question, you'll get 10 different answers. You'll get different answers from the State Department versus our Department of Defense. You'll even get different answers within the White House. All they say is, well, we will be there for as long as it takes. We will spend as much, hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars of American taxpayer dollars, whatever it takes, as long as it takes, but not defining what that is. And Piers, it is because of my experience serving in different war zones in the military that I know that there are very simple questions that need to be asked and answered before committing American taxpayer dollars and our support to go and intervene. What is our objective? What are we trying to accomplish? How does it serve the best national interests of the American people and our own country's security? What President Biden should have done from the very beginning was exercised his leadership to get Putin and Zelensky or their representatives across the table from each other to broker a peace deal. The details to say, well, we're just going to be in this until, Zelensky's standard, which is they get every inch of Ukrainian territory back. How many Ukrainian lives are going to be sacrificed in the process?
Yeah, but hang on, Tulsi.
As laudable because that goal is, Piers.
Right, but on that point, let me ask you, if this was an attack on American soil, you would want every single inch that was taken by Russia or whoever it may be back.
So, of course, if someone attacked America, we would spend every dollar, every bit of resources to defend our country. But would other countries spend all of their resources sending it to us, hoping that we win? Now, even if you go back to World War II, we kind of set out of that until we needed to be involved in it. And then when it was time to exit, we didn't see a whole lot of countries saying, let's go make sure that America makes it out safely. We didn't see a bunch of countries coming to our defense when Pearl Harbor was bombed. We had to take the lead. Same thing during the Iran-Iraq wars. Yes, England got involved. France said, nah. It just depends. So I kind of agree with Tulsi on this, that we have to come up with a strategy. We had hoped it would be short-lived, that Putin would listen. We'll throw some money at Ukraine. They'll get bombed. They'll fix everything back up. And then life would, business as usual. But that's not what happened. So now what do? We continue to pour money. I don't think Donald Trump's going to do it. I really, really don't. So, so we have the Israel-Palestinian conflict. We have the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And going 2025 to 2030, it's just going to be interesting to see how we move forward. I am not a geopolitical, aficionado. I don't know how these things work, but I'm going to keep my eye on it, as should all of us. So I'm going to end this with a little fun. So, you know what? How do you say it? A mukbang or mukbang? You know what that is in social media trending and TikTok? It's I'll describe it for you. Created in South Korea. It's a video, especially one that is live streamed, that features a person eating a large quantity of food and addressing the audience. Think of Keith Lee, very popular, but also all over TikTok, people are eating things in the camera. I watch it. I think I get pulled in by it, but it's kind of, I don't know. Just watching people eat large quantities of food and stuffing it in their face and sipping drinks and stuff like that. Not a big fan of it. But anyway, what's intrigued me lately is this new Big Mac chicken sandwich. All right. My wife loves the Big Mac. I can't eat McDonald's. It kind of makes me sick. That's nothing against McDonald's. I don't want a lawsuit or cease and desist from McDonald's. That's my personal body. Doesn't sit well. I prefer Burger King. I love the Whopper. But nevertheless, this Big Mac chicken sandwich, if you go to TikTok and you just search Big Mac chicken sandwich, you'll see thousands and thousands of videos with tens of thousands of views and tens of thousands of comments. And I just find it so fascinating that people are all into this sandwich. Now, so I clicked a lot of videos. And what I wanted to know is, do they know what's in a Big Mac? No one knows what's in the Big Mac. They would say things like, I don't like the secret sauce, or, oh, I can't believe they put pickles on this. Oh, I don't like onions. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the song because I'm old enough to remember it. The original song was 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
It's your McDonald's Big Mac. You've got to taste it to believe it, you know what I mean?
2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
2 all beef patties.
Let me say a few words about McDonald's Big Mac. It's
2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
2 whole... Well, what was that word again?
2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
Lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, lettuce, cheese, pickles, oh, what am I saying?
You deserve a break today at McDonald's,
where your dollar gets a break every day.
One more time. 2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. The reason I know that because it rang in our ears as a child, and that was the McDonald's jingle. Everybody knew it. So now you can't make a Big Mac chicken sandwich without those ingredients. It has to be 2 chicken patties, beef patties, but not beef patties, 2 all chicken patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. If you don't have the rest of the ingredients, then it's not a Big Mac. Those are very special to Big Mac. All right. So just wanted to point that out. So one of my favorite, like I said, I don't like these type of videos, but this guy's funny. He had some humor to it. Here's Dre.
Did y'all know that McDonald's got a chicken Big Mac? What? If this ain't some Big Mac stuff, I don't know what is. Now McDonald's, this is McDonald's, this is ridiculous. Oh, it's gonna be so good. It got 2 chicken patties, the sauce, the lettuce, and the pickles, and the cheese. It need a little mustard.
No. So if you add mustard, it's not a Big Mac. See, he said, oh, and the cheese and the pickles. And I think he knew the song. But a lot of people didn't even read off the ingredients because they don't know the song. I could tell they had to be like Gen Zers or millennials. Maybe some millennials might know the song, but I know baby boomers and Gen Xers, we know that song. And, but I mean, the reaction to this is kind of crazy. Like everyone's going nuts with this sandwich. Like just his video alone had over 3,000 comments, and people like, can't wait to get one. Had one yesterday. I want to get another one. And they're just talking about McDonald's. And there's a YouTuber named Kai Cenat. He's also on the T-Mobile commercial, if you don't know who I'm talking about, with Snoop Dogg. I know people have looked at the commercial and go, who's that guy? But Kai Cenat, in fact, Kamala Harris called him and said, can we be on your podcast? And he was like, hell no, I don't do politics. All right, guys, listen, that is the show today. I just wanted to come and give you a quick, short show and see what you think. As I end all podcasts, I just want to tell y'all, hope you had a great weekend. Other than that, peace.